Hello everyone, and again on the journey of Mr. Ink, we have another little job this evening after I've rushed home from work to find that I have another part that has come through the post, and this time gearbox mount. Now, I did not film the rear engine mount because many of you have seen me do that quite a few times down the years, and unfortunately on Nick's car it was actually completely unsuccessful due to seized bolts. But thankfully I have changed that in this car, and what I'm intending to do, and I aimed this from the very start, is to change all the engine mounts separately, because I want to find out, particularly on a great specimen, a great example or specimen of an aging Mark 1 that is very original, untouched in this area. All the engine mounts are completely original, like many areas of this car. So how about what difference they make when I change them individually? Now, I've been doing that, as you know, for a few other bits, you know, like the bottom arms. They've stiffened up and quietened the front suspension. I don't think the drop links have done anything noticeable, but the front wishbones, definite difference, new bushes. Rear suspension, we're going to come on to that. This gearbox mounts, yeah, well, the rear gearbox mount has made a tiny amount of difference as to the engine rocking, particularly when going from reverse to drive, or noticeably at the traffic lights, where you felt like there were two opposing forces in this situation. When moving off at the traffic lights, me putting my foot on the gas, the car was moving forwards, the engine wanted to move slightly back in the other direction. So you could tell there was a difference, and that should not be the case. There's less so now, but there's still a little bit of vibration, strangely, coming through into the cabin. Now, that's one or both of the remaining mounts. The gearbox mount, which is this, which is a, if you can tell, it's a Merle 714130005. Okay. Now, I am trying to specify a lot of, well, melee, I should say. Melee? Is that the pronunciation? I'm trying to standardise in Lemforder or melee, because I've done that in the past, and melee tends to be extremely well priced, but I've never really had anything bad to say about these components. OEM, yeah, as close as for the price. So you may find that with most of the melee stuff, you wouldn't actually tell a difference straight away. And I'm hoping that it actually might improve what's on the car, because what is on the car is 20 years of age, 21, you know, going on this year. So it's not ideal. So I'm hoping to change this prompto. And I have changed this before in a video on Nick's George, successfully this time, no seized bolts. It's a relatively easy job, but you're going to need a jack to support the gearbox. Obviously, it won't fall out the car, but it won't be very happy, or I should say the drive shafts will not be very happy, because you'll be supporting practically half the transmission, or the transaxle, I should say, transaxle, using the drive shafts on one side, because that's what's going to stop it falling out the car. And the other engine mounts will not agree with you at all. But this engine mount, by the way, as far as I'm aware, is applicable for every petrol Mark 1 Focus, from a 1.4 to a 2 litre, whatever gearbox you have, whether it's a manual gearbox or an automatic, because the bracket, and this is the top mount, the bracket that you're going to see is different for the manual to the automatic, and that's the bit that's different. It basically adapts whatever gearbox to this engine mounting, so you don't need different engine mountings, very thankfully. And I have a feeling that the diesels may use the same engine mount, but please correct me if I'm wrong. I am not sure about the diesels, because diesels produce a bit more vibration, and therefore this may not be as good, but it may be a perfect fit. So you've got the number. Let's get out there. Right, first thing is to get the jack into place. Now, on most Mark 1s that are standard and that are lowered, the ride height of a Mark 1 should give enough clearance for you to get a very small slimline jack. Do not use a scissor jack, guys. You've got to use a trolley jack, because you do your backing, you can't physically do it. So you've got to sort of push against the stone deflector. Yeah, well, it's already bent anyway, but the idea is it's also very scratched as well. But as you can see, I've jacked up against the 4F27E, which has a very flat steel sump pan, of which we need a block of wood in order to spread that load. If I just get the just pump it up a bit, there we go, lovely. Now you pump the handle until the car starts to actually rise. That means that that mount is actually under a little bit of pressure now, and it's been supported by the jack. You may want to pump it up just a little bit more. Probably I'll just go another one. Yeah, I felt a bit of force there. That's fantastic. Okay, now we're all sorted there. Every other manual gearbox should have a decently flat surface, even though this gearbox has got that lovely sump pan that you could just support on. It's just to keep it supported for the time being. Question: if your jack fails, if let's say by some miracle your trolley jack was to leak fluid and just that's it, while the seals has gone in it, well, yeah, what would happen is if the mounting had been taken off, then it would just be supported by that engine mount, which is going to be the next one we're going to be changing, because I've got a feeling there's some hydraulic oil that may have leaked out of that, and that's why my vibrations in the cabin. I think that does a lot of vibration. But I'm going to see what difference that this makes. So this has reduced a bit of the rocking, and I don't think it's made any difference to the vibration in the cabin. So that's why I'm doing this today on this side, because it's relatively simple. So once we've done that, and by the way, even though it's supported with that mounting and that mounting, that is enough to keep the engine and gearbox where it is, even though there'll be a bit of strain on this drive shaft on this side, which will want to sort of pull the gearbox up, even though the gearbox has dropped because the trolley jack has dropped. In that case, withdraw the jack and get another jack in there as quickly as possible. Hopefully you can get one quick, but that would be extremely unlucky. But what we need to do is, once again, like we did with the mass airflow sensor, which I think has made a lot of difference. There is more power to this car now. Now I should be able to wiggle that completely off. It's always a struggle, that is. There we go, lovely. Now there is an air breather, which, oh, it's come off. Why is that off? Right, okay, I've been driving around without a breather connected. Not the end of the world, but I think I might have not clicked it in the last time. Oh, that's been disconnected for some time. Well done, Andrew. Bit of a fail there. So we go disconnect the mass airflow sensor. There we go. Lovely. Okay. Just pop that over there. Now we could just... This might take some brute strength, to be honest, if you haven't moved this in a while, but you're just going to have to kind of shift that out the way, because it's going to clash, and then pull the whole thing up. Now I've got this resonator box that I can pull on, but it's only clipped onto these legs. There we go. It's gone on that side. There we go. Lovely. Ooh, these legs can get awfully stiff. I'm just going to pop this. Right, so we've got the air snorkel here, and I've got to replace the air snorkel because I made a mistake. It's not the stone deflector that's actually broken. I wasn't looking. It's the actual snorkel that's broken. So, yeah, this whole bloody thing has got to come out at some point, but it doesn't matter. It'll do. It'll do. So this is the engine mount in question, and we've got these bungs that the air filter box goes in, and obviously the snorkel clips in, but it's pretty self-explanatory. I've given it a bit of a clean over previously because it could get awfully dirty around this area. Hello ABS motor. Yes, you wouldn't normally see that sticker, but I did have a bit of a clean up of that ABS motor. Lovely, lovely. All the pipes are looking good, and earth points that I'm not going to snap. So what we have here, we've got the centre bolt and the 4 bolts. Now the centre bolt is what connects the mounting to the bracket that attaches to the gearbox. That's the bracket that is different for the type of gearbox. So if you've got a manual gearbox, you'll have a completely different lower mounting to me. Okay, this is what we call the upper mounting. Okay, so the lower mounting is the bit between the gearbox that's bolted to the top of the gearbox and bolted to this mounting with this centre bolt here. Okay, now what I'm going to do, just as a safeguard, is pump this handle. Yeah, that is now nice and firm. It's been pushed up, so when I take that nut off, it should be all good. Now, I'm not going to use any WD-40 because I know for a fact that these are going to come out because I've got this gun here. And when I've got this gun, it takes no prisoners. But get a breaker bar on it, it should come off. But anyway, and if you do this with an impact gun, you will feel the car move. The car definitely moved up then. So I think the weight of the gearbox has definitely, well, it's been taken off. So now the gearbox has now technically been disconnected from the mounting. So I'll put that on the side. Now we need to take all 4 of these off, which again is a repeat process. 15 millimeters. Lovely. Some of these can be quite tight, but I've never had one snap. Actually, I'm quite surprised how tight these are. Now, what's just happened then? The whole engine has moved backwards. So if I put my big daddy over there, the whole engine shifted a little bit because there's no stress now on the engine. It will want to go where it wants to go. Now, I'm going to give all these individually a bit of a clean up in a second, just with a wire brush. In fact, wow. I've never seen that sort of rust on any of these fasteners before. They were stuck. Wow, wow, wow. But anyway, now we can move this up and pull it out. There we go. Woohoo! And there's your lower mounting. Now I'm just going to move that to the side for a second. So, we've got a gearbox pipe. Oh no, that is not. That is one of the power steering pipes just here. That goes from the rack all the way to the cooler. But this is your engine mounting. There's a couple of bolts down there, but you don't need to remove this. I'll just give this a bit of a brush up in here. I'm going to tell you something now. I took this airbox off to sort out the MAF sensor. Now, what you didn't see in that video is down here, when I removed this snorkel, was evidence of mouse droppings. Oh yes, mouse droppings. I'm going to not talk about that too much, but it was vacuumed out by a very eager Dyson. There was evidence in this area that a mouse had tried to make a home, hence why it's now in the bin. This has made no difference, by the way. I may buy one, but if you want underbonnet sound deafening for your Mark 1, £108, something like that. Absolutely crackers. So yeah, just to be warned. So there is no longer remnants of a nest on top of the gearbox webbing. Obviously that was a very nice place to put it. I'm just going to give this a bit of a clean over. I would ideally at this stage just clean all these nuts because they're going to go back on. Give that a bit of a clean and then we'll be ready for that. So back in 5. Right, so I've cleaned all the fixings up and done a lot of cleaning in there. We can actually see, strangely, down into the chassis rail down there. I do apologise if my lighting isn't brilliant. Again, wrong time of the day for this, but it's all been cleaned off. It hasn't, just 5 minutes of cleaning, well worth it. Just while you're in there, clean as you go. You know the way I work now. These are sort of the parts numbers on here. It's the original. It's totally original. But what I find happens to these, in extreme cases, and I've only seen one example of this, when these fail, these ears, okay, this rubber collapses so much, it can collapse that much, that these ears can actually touch onto this metal here, and that will cause extreme vibration in the cabin. You will know something is up. Every time you put your foot on that pedal, the whole car will shake. And that's because it's completely collapsed. I actually think there's nothing severely wrong with this. there is evidence of cracking just in the corners, just there, just a little bit there, just where my finger is here. Yeah, stress cracks over the years, but nothing severe. Now this one, just take it out of the packet. It's just nice to see something really, really nice, and it is manufactured by Melee itself. It's not one of these, Melee make their own bits, okay? A lot of their own bits they make, especially suspension stuff, okay? And that's why they goddamn good, because you know where it's come from. It isn't someone rebadging something from China. Now Febi is one of those brands. I've gone to Febi for certain things. You don't go to Febi for engine mountings or any suspension components. I've never advised anybody to go for Febi unless there is no choice. I've had to buy Febi wishbone arms for Ruby over there, but in the last 6 months, because for that car there are only 3 or 4 different manufacturers who will make such arms. I've got no choice really. So if you do have a choice, Lemforda or Melee. Now I may look to buy a Melee for the hydro mount, because the rear one is a Lemforda, but I can also get a Lemforda one. The difference between the two brands, Lemforda is a bit more expensive. Why? I think their distribution isn't quite as good as Melee around the world, so therefore this company's costs are much lower, hence why this costs less. I'm not saying that there's much difference between the two. If there's difference between the two, I have not noticed it. That rubber boot is at the back. Just hook it in. If you can't quite hook it in, that's fine. You might have to just give the engine a bit of a pull. You might have to do it with 2 hands here, just to rest you on the battery. So I just put you there. Excuse me. There we go. I've just pulled the engine backwards just with my hand, just to get it in. There we go. Lovely. That's all you need. Now, what will happen is, as you start to tighten things down, you may find it resets. So I'm just going to leave you there. Now what we're going to do first of all, you might notice that we're a bit far down on the gearbox side of things, so we're going to have to I'm just going to pump the jack just to get that to come through a little bit. Oh, well that's not right, the engine mounting is lifting as well. That's okay, because it's a bit caught. There we go, push it down again, it's just caught on the threads, that's why. So I'm just going to raise it just a little bit more until we're kind of all there. There we go. Okay, so the gearbox is in the right place. This engine mount is sitting flush. Now the first thing to really do, if I'm being brutally honest, now you can do this 2 ways. Now you can either do the centre nut first or the 4 outer nuts. Personally, since the engine mount is now flush against the lower mount, we do the centre bolt first. Now, in the normal proceedings, this is where you would just hand tighten. So I'm just gonna, okay. Now, that might be a bit flush, so I'm just going to pump it up again, just to establish, yeah, it has come up actually. I can feel a gap with my hands. We just want to establish that there's no interference, that it's definitely sitting nice and true. That's good. Right, that bolt now is ready to be torqued up. Now the torque setting is 133. Now the truth is, you don't do that with the gearbox supported. You do it when you've done all the other bolts, connected it all back up, torque them bolts up, but you don't torque the center one, okay? There's different ways of doing that, but as long as all the bolts have been torqued up with the weight off the gearbox, because if you imagine the weight being on the gearbox and then you're torquing the bolts up, that's not an accurate torque setting. We want 133 Newton meters with no pressure on that mounting, okay? That's what it's like. So now that's secure, the gearbox isn't going to drop out. We now need to secure these 4 nuts. Now, this engine mounting isn't quite sitting. It's just sitting a bit too far back, but that's okay. I can see where it's sitting. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to force it back with my hand to slide this in, and that requires you guys to sit on the side again. It's a two-handed job, this. Now again, we just need to establish that this is the other part of this. So that's tightened up, but it's still flush. That was just to establish that the mount and the lower mount are mated together. But this mount is not mated to this surface. We want to drop the gearbox again because it's not going to fall out anymore. So I'm just going to, there we go, lovely. I felt that go actually. The height of the car reduced quite a bit. Okay. So yeah, we're on the floor again. Now I just want to jack into it just to give some wiggle room. Yeah, that's fine. Now, if I can just move this just a little bit. In fact, that looks like it's sitting pretty much where it should be. Now it should practically self-center. That can happen, it might not happen, but I wouldn't worry too much. It looks like, judging by the old markings of where the old mountain sat, it looks like we've got it slap bang on. So this is where we tighten the bolts up. Okay, just a little bit. There we go. This one. That engine mounting is literally butted up against this writing. That's how it was before. It might be fractionally just to the rear, but I couldn't move the engine and gearbox, the transaxle, the complete transaxle assembly. I couldn't move it more forwards, and that's perfectly normal. That's absolutely fine. It generally, where it rests is a good place to be, okay? And that's all you need to know. Now what we do now, even though we've still got some moderate pressure on the bottom of the gearbox, we now torque 1, 2, 3, 4. We torque them outer nuts first. Then we need to torque the center one up, but to do that we need to lower the vehicle so that the full weight is on that nut. There we go. Lovely. Just pull that away. Just make sure. Yeah, we're completely off the gearbox there. Just to make doubly sure. Now we've got the full weight on these 4 and that. Now, generally, I don't worry about torquing these up with the weight off. We can always go back and check. I can redo the 48 Newton meters again, but really, it's this center nut that you need to concentrate on. And it does say that in the old Ford Etis system. So, 21 millimeters through the middle. This is going to be tight. Very tight. There we go, done. Oh, lovely. And that's all we need to know about that. There you go, end of the episode, blah, blah. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's a lovely sight, I have to say, and that's what you want to see. And as far as everything else is concerned, just pop the airbox back on. Make sure that this breather is connected, Andrew. Screw that back on, and there you go. How easy was that? I'll report back on the findings after I drive this down the road in about 5 minutes time, as usual. Take care, guys.